Welcome to the Awakened Collective, where we explore the topics of love, spiritual consciousness, and our divine purpose on this planet. Join us as we uncover the truth that our thoughts shape our reality. Welcome to the Awakened Collective podcast. Good morning. I'm Rick Gregory, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. And a special thank you, as always, to Audio Alchemy Productions and Daniel Anderson for the gift they are to the world. May I remind you again that you have never been separated from your Creator. We have never been separated from one another. You are the divine extension of your Creator's love on this planet by whatever name you choose to call your Creator. We have some special guests this morning. Two more of my friends on this emotional intelligence journey, and their names are Mason Ayer and Shane Metcalf, and I am so glad to have them with us this morning. Shane and Mason, welcome.
Thank you, Rick.
Just want to say that one of the many blessings I see in both of you is loving kindness. Both of these guys are husbands, dads, entrepreneurs, businessmen, but aren't those just roles rather than who they be? And we're going to talk about that today. In fact, the title of this podcast is Human Development. What's love got to do with it? Not to bring up Tina Turner, but what's love got to do with it? Because it really is about how we evolve in love and who we become, who we be. So I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves, your backgrounds. Now, I know that Mason, he has like a fleet of restaurants in Texas called Kirby Lane Cafe. I've been to them. One of them anyway in Austin. And Shane, I know he spent decades on a human development journey. He had an award-winning podcast that's still running that he turned over to a friend called HR Superstars. But I'd like you to tell us about you, how your path led you to this emotional intelligence journey that we're sharing together. But most importantly, what you've learned about yourself, the world, and who you get to be today. So who'd like to take it off first?
Mason, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll jump in. Thank you for that, Shane, and thank you for that, Rick. I hope everybody is having a lovely day today. I am sideways. Is there anything I need to do on my end to try to correct that?
It's Here, not on our end. Now you're up. There you go.
There we go. Is that working?
That's working. Yes. You are right side up, Mason. What an amazing start to the day already.
I seem to have lost audio.
Check.
Good on our end.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mason. Here, watch. Why don't I start with my intro while Mason, you work on your.
Sure, that'd be great.
Your technical. So everybody, Shane Metcalf and Rick, thanks so much for having me on, and great to be here with you, Mason. So my background, I like to think of my background as very nonlinear. You know, life has thrown so many curveballs and so many surprises at me, and I'm really amazed that I've had the career that I've had the adventures and the travel. So I grew up in a small town in northern New Mexico called Taos, and so I was born in a pretty unconventional family, you know, always kind of going against the grain of society. My parents really pursued awakening over material wealth, right? They kind of thought, hey, look, if we're going to pursue a path of enlightenment, we need to swear off the material world. And, you know, as a kid, it was like, you know, hey, whoa, what about the material needs, yo? And so I always grew up with this dynamic of, okay, I have this amazing spiritual legacy, but I also want it all, right? I don't think that the idea that we have to sacrifice our material needs in order to aspire towards higher consciousness, I kind of saw through that as a false narrative pretty early on. Now, props to my parents for taking all of the risks and breaking the mold, the culture that they grew up in, And they thought, hey, we have to go all the way over here. And so my journey through human development, through love, through emotional intelligence has been one where if I look back, there's always been a lot of seeds planted. You know, I had an amazing high school that used Ken Wilber's integral theory to teach the foundation of the entire curriculum. And, you know, really looking at human development from an integral perspective, that there's all of these, we have a multitude of parts. We have a multitude of different lines of development that we can pursue. We have professional, personal, interior, interpersonal, social, societal. And I really took that idea to heart and said, oh, okay, cool. I get to pursue whole human development. I get to work on all of myself, not just I want a career, which I barely even wanted a career. I was way more interested in kind of personal evolution, personal growth. And there was a couple of key milestones in my life that kind of led to that. But there was also these giant gaps in my resume because I was like, hey, I'm going to go live in crazy underground communes in San Francisco in my 20s, and kind of had this like giant gap in my resume. And what do you do when you have a giant gap in your resume where you're actually just like a part of crazy personal development, organizations? Well, you become an entrepreneur because you know, at the time I was like, I'm not hireable. I have no resume. And so I actually really started my own path. And I met a mentor who took me under his wing in coaching. He was an executive coach, and he kind of trained me as an executive coach. And I was like a mid 20-year-old, kind of insecure, had no idea what I was really doing, but with a little bit of pluck and a little bit of like gumption, I threw myself into the world of coaching, and I fell in love. And I thought I was going to do that forever. But then as life happened, it took me, and I met another friend who was starting a software company that was really focused on using questions to create better dialogue. And I think of it as opening up the bandwidth of truth inside of a company. I ended up joining him as a co-founder and building out this company it was called 15Five, and it was in the HR tech kind of B2B enterprise. And we really pursued how do we have better conversations? How do we do real-time performance management? And I ended up building that company for about 11 years. And our mission was to create high-performing organizations by helping people become their best selves. We had our own experience of transformational work, emotional intelligence, and leadership training. And we said, hey, why would we only reserve that for us as founders when these keys to help unlock human potential are so valuable? And so we created a culture where we promoted people doing workshops and trainings and getting coaching and leaning into personal development as heavily as professional development, because ultimately they're the same thing. And so I built that company for 11 years, and it was pretty successful. It was a wild ride, one of the greatest journeys of my life. And about 2 years ago, I stepped out of that, and I've actually come full circle. Now I just coach and mentor other founders, CEOs, mostly in the technology space. And so one of the things that I really love about doing ALA is that, hey, look, like there's not one path, there's not one road to Rome, right? All paths lead to Rome. All paths of growth are valid. Now, are they equally effective? That's up for debate. But in the sense that they all help us kind of, even the ones that disillusion us and are false paths, can actually reveal a lot about ourselves and put us on to something else. And so one of the things that I'm really prescient about is that, like, I've been doing this work for a couple of decades, and it never ends. It never gets dull. The moment we think that we've arrived, we start to lose the edge. And so I love this work because it encourages us to play on where our edge is, not where it used to be. And so it's a crazy journey, but I'm really grateful to continue finding things that put me on my edge.
So who invited you into this world of ALA, and how did you hear about it? And did you just say yes right away? Because obviously you've been doing this a long time, and I have heard comments of from people saying, well, haven't you gotten enough of this stuff yet? Why aren't you out just teaching it or something? Why do you need more? But I like what you said, that, we're ever evolving. And when we think we've arrived, that's when the red light should be going off.
Yeah. What are they? What is it? None are more imprisoned than those who think they are free.
Like that.
And so, well, and Rick, you are teaching it, right? You are out here. You are actually living it. And so that would be my first answer. So Ben Arnberg is a really dear friend of mine. He's actually a prior coaching client. And, it's also like one of these beautiful things, right? Of like, I was of service to this human. And then, I don't know, 18 months later, he called me up and said, Shane, there's this course that I've been doing, and I think you would really love it. And at first I was like, dude, I'm so good. Like I do not need the inconvenience of traveling to Austin. I was in the deep end of relationship stuff. I was running my business. I'm a parent. The inconvenience of traveling to an in-person workshop in Austin multiple weekends. I was like, hell no. I've done this. I've done every freaking workshop under the sun. I'm good. And he persisted. And one of the things that got me actually and more intrigued is he said, hey, Shane, actually my experience of you is playing small. And that one kind of, because, I've been in this like pseudo retirement after running my company for 11 years where I'm just like, hey, I've got a nice little lifestyle business. I'm good. Leadership is a pain in the ass, right? I was burned out on leadership. I was burned out from running my company. And I kind of was happy to just be like, hey, I'm going to just chill in the back of the room. I'm good. And so that was the comment that kind of, was like, "Argh." and then as I sat with it deeper, I thought, I am at a crossroads in my life. I just turned 40. I've got big questions up in my relationships. And I know that my main job as a coach is to continue leaning into my own edge. And so that's when I said, hey, you know what? I'll try it out. Worst case that happens is I improve my coaching skills a little bit. And so that's when I signed up.
And you were extremely disappointed, right?
It's I just came on here to rail against Ben Arnberg. I cannot believe you made me do this. No, it's been really great because it's not that it's a ton of new stuff, right? It's that it's brought together in an exceptionally well done package. And the facilitation is world class, and there's integrity, and there's no upsells, which thank God, I'm so grateful for that. So there's integrity to the container, and it allowed me to say, oh, great, I know this works, so I'm going to just throw myself into the deep end. And it has been extremely cathartic. It's been very supportive in me getting clear about what is my deeper desires, my deeper prayer in life. What is the thing that I really want, and being able to take committed action towards that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, my experience would not be what it has been and continues to be if the two of you weren't part of this. So I just love the fact that, every day that we're together, and we brought this up on a call yesterday, I think, you don't put your feet in the same river twice. It's always moving. And we're never going to have this experience again with these same people in the same container, working on the same things, and just to freaking enjoy it. And I have been enjoying it, and brought back to mind the story that we heard and that I shared a couple of weeks ago about Chris talking about his dad who had Alzheimer's and dementia in the hospital, and having him blurt out one day when he was visiting him, I miss traffic. And, he was trying to just humor him, and he's like, "Yeah, dad, I get it, traffic, I get it," or whatever, and he's like, "No, you don't understand. You need to hear me. I miss traffic." So he sat on the bed or whatever and said, "Dad, tell me about it. Why did you miss traffic?" And he said, "Because when I was in traffic, I knew that I had left my job and I was on my way home to be with you and your mother." And man, the things we take for granted, the things that we get, pissed off about, or, I'm aggravated. I don't want to have to do this. There'll be a time in my life when I will wish that I could do that again. And this has been an experience for me, and I'm sure you can relate, where some things have been a little difficult for me to take a look at. And, working with other people and getting feedback that sometimes isn't what I want to hear, but need to hear. I will cherish those moments for the rest of my life. So, do we get your sound back, Mason?
It appears so. Can you hear?
Woohoo!
Right.
We can
There
hear
we go.
you.
So technology issues resolved. I appreciate you guys hanging in.
Awesome.
And Shane, thank you for jumping in. So going back to the earlier prompt, my journey to ALA is in some ways not dissimilar from Shane's. I run a business. I've done that for the last going on 15 years. It's a group of restaurants in Austin, Texas. And it's interesting, so much of how I defined myself for so long has been tied up in that business. I mean, much of my self-worth and identity is as CEO and operator of Kirby Lane Cafe. It's how I created a sense of self. And a big part of my journey through ALA is finding a sense of self that's not validated by external circumstances, external things, outside achievement. Finding a sense of self of who I am as a human being, and that's been an extraordinarily powerful thing for me. I've gone through over the last 4 or 5 years some pretty significant trauma. I've had the trauma of COVID, which is a real thing for many people. I realized that there were many people that thrived and had businesses that thrived during COVID. The restaurant industry was not one of them. That was a very, very challenging period of my life, and one that created massive disruption in my life and my family. And then in late 2022, my younger brother, Davis, unexpectedly passed away. He died from a heart attack. And that was just a complete body blow, something that I obviously didn't and couldn't have anticipated. So I really went into a state of deep mourning and depression, and I wasn't at my best. I struggled through my work, my marriage, as a father and as a husband. And it was actually through Ben Arnberg for me as well, who approached me about it. We are in a business group together. We know each other very, very well. In fact, a big component of that business group is being vulnerable and sharing from within, and really getting to the core of what's going on underneath the hood. And Ben obviously knew my struggles and the things that I've been dealing with. And I'd done a lot of healing. I'd done a lot of work on myself over the last year and a half or more since my brother died. And Ben approached me about this. We actually had breakfast one morning at one of my restaurants, and we had a great conversation. And Ben asked me about what I envisioned for my life, for my future, what I'm working on, and really evoked this vision from me. And as I started thinking about the things that were important to me, he was able to relate back to how this program that he'd done, and I'd seen the changes that had occurred in him since he'd done this program. He was able to relate back how it had really helped him get clarity in his life and what it is he wants. And so pretty shortly thereafter, I signed up. I trusted Ben, and I still trust Ben. I'm closer to him today than I've ever been. And the journey's been an amazing thing. I think it was one of the Russian authors, I think it was Tolstoy, who said, everybody talks about changing the world, but no one talks about changing themselves. And with this program, with ALA, I've really been able to focus on changing myself. And I fully anticipate that by changing myself, I will ultimately change the world. And so that's my journey. And I couldn't be happier to have gone through this with you, Shane, and you, Rick, and the cohort that we're in this together. I have friends for life out of it, and it's been an amazing experience for me.
Thank you, Mason. And first of all, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother. I did not know that. Yeah, that is sad, and it's a lot to go through at that period of time with COVID and everything else. I get that. So what do you think for yourself that you what was your aha moment? For me, for example, kind of along the lines of Shane, about playing small and being disengaged and wanting to be under the radar, not wanting to be seen, just not realizing what I had to offer and how I was depriving the world of myself. And I was just curious as to maybe what stood out for you in the process.
So there's a number of things that stand out for me. I think that as I look at myself and going into ALA, I had a pretty good sense of what my limiting beliefs were. Um, I have a lifelong tendency towards people pleasing. I have this deep urge and sense within myself that I've got to keep the peace and ensure everybody else is happy and turn to everybody else's emotions before I look to myself, which has burned me deeply more times than I can count. I understood that. I didn't really know what to do about it. I also understood that I had a sense of victimhood. I walked around saying, "Why are these things happening to me? It's not fair. Life is not fair. Why does this stuff keep happening to me?" Um, and then I also had this, and I hit on this a moment ago. Like my sense of self was really defined externally. It was defined by high achievement and what others thought of me. And so all three of those things, I had some sense of the limitations that they were placing on me. I didn't have a sense of what to do about it. And so at some point, I couldn't pinpoint the moment that this occurred, but at some point during uh, our time together, a shift occurred for me where, and I think the shift occurred around self-worth. I think that's really where the shift occurred, where I came to understand I am whole, I am complete, I am beautiful the way I am, and what other people think of me and what I achieve in business and in life is irrelevant and disconnected from who I am as a human being.
There you
And
go.
so when that shift occurred, everything else opened up. When that shift occurred, the need to care for other people's happiness and emotions, that that became much less profound for me. The need to validate myself through as high achievement as I possibly can find became way less important. And so this idea of shifting into believing in who I am as a human, believing that I am good enough as I am, was really the aha moment for me. And through that process, I mean, there's things that draw that out of you, and that was my experience. And I think that that was really the profound shift that occurred.
Thank you, Mason. That is powerful stuff. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and I just want to say
go
and
ahead.
reflect
Yeah,
that
please.
watching both of you and myself, right? Like through the journey from, I don't know, what is it, 4 months ago, to today is like, wow, right? What a testimony to the power of this work, to see your brightness, Mason, to see your optimism, to see the joy that's like flooding back into you. And yeah, and so it's so cool because one of the things that comes out of this program is community, is friendship. And I always learned, actually, I think I learned from Brendan Burchard way back in the day that if you want to create really strong relationships, go through both challenging and novel experiences together, and you're going to hot fuse a relationship like nothing else can. And so it's really fun to like go through deeply challenging experiences through this program that also are completely novel. And then on the other side is that like I have so many friends for life now that, and I didn't know that. I'm like, hey, I got a lot of friends, I don't really need more friends, was kind of my orientation. And now it's like it's hard to imagine my life without both of you, without the larger community of ALA. And it's just like, wow, what a high dose of vitamin community into my life.
Yes. I mean, when you are just opening up your heart and being vulnerable with another human being, allowing them to see into you. And I've always heard that intimacy is into me see. You're allowing folks to see you, and others are allowing you to see them and being able to provide feedback. I mean, we don't that I think that's what humanity's supposed to be about. And we have missed the boat. How often, that we are, I think we even said this, afraid to tell someone they've got spinach in their teeth. And we go well beyond that. And we are open to that feedback. And it's been life changing. The faces, just the faces of people And I talk about my friend Susan on this podcast. I mentioned her many times. I got to have her on. I don't recognize her today from the moment she walked in. And it's hard for us to see ourselves, but it's very easy for us to see the transition in another. And it's just amazing to me.
Well, and going back to one of the core ideas of this podcast, which is that like we're connected in ways we can't even begin to fathom, right? That it's just like a sea of energy and consciousness, and we're each these little waves that are like, hey, I'm a wave, and it's like, no, you're the ocean, right? But it's like the waves being able to see the beauty of the other waves helps us to actually heal ourselves. And so I think that's part of the magic of this container is that while I really appreciate that it's not explicitly spiritual, there is a quality of watching other people's growth and leaning into their own edges that has its own very deep impact in ourselves. And I think that's probably, based in neurology and mirror neurons, and seeing other people lean into their edges has us inherently just be on our edge. And
Yes.
and so there's a lot of the interpersonal magic that happens in this program that I think that I've had friends that are like, oh, well, like I'm doing amazing work with a coach that I love right now. And I'm like, look, you could work one-on-one with Chris Lee and you're not going to experience what's possible because it is the collective, right? It's the collective awakening. It's the
Yes.
collective interpersonal transformational work that is producing so much of the kind of cathartic impact.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for the sustainment of these things, which is that we continue to build these relationships that are growth oriented, that actually help with the integration going beyond the peak experiences of a program.
Yeah. Mason, you going to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and there's not an explicit spirituality component to this program, but for me, that was part of what it created was the spirituality piece, and it's exactly as Shane said. It was through the interconnectedness with others, it was seeing people in deeply vulnerable states where they're bearing their heart and bearing their soul, and I'm doing the same thing. And the connectedness that create this idea that we as a humanity are all in this together. That part was incredibly powerful for me, and uplifting in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. And I think about some of the experiences that Shane, you and I have had together. I mean, there was a moment that I'm not going to go into the details, but there was a moment where you were in a deep emotional state and very raw. And I'll remember that and cherish it for the rest of my life, because it's like I got to see your soul. I got to see the man inside you, and it was this extraordinarily powerful thing for me, and it created a level of bonding that I can't think of another experience that creates that level of connectedness. And so it's been truly moving and powerful experience for me.
Well, Basin, I'll fill in the details because I think I know what you're referring to. But the moment that my partner, my wife of 14 years, is going through the program right now. So she went in the cohort after I did, and being able to witness her going through this experience, and I really think of it was actually that night that had me realize, like, oh, this is a psychological rebirth. Like, this is like a being able to have a molting of a skin, and being able to witness that in my partner, who I've done a lot of really deep transformational work with. But the depth of this one just cracked me open, and I was openly weeping because of the meaning of it, the healing, the possibilities that creates, the repair, the friendship, the emergence of something new in a dynamic of somebody that I've been relating with for a very long time. And I think that that was, it's like me also getting more comfortable allowing myself to be seen in those emotional places is really beautiful. And then, like, Mason, to hear you be so impacted by that, it's just like, oh, crap. Like, are you really, like, my vulnerability really is like the superpower and that
Yes.
that's kind of true for everybody. Ah, shit, you know?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I get this lesson again and again and again, but it is the vulnerability that allows the gears of our psychology to spin and evolve our own selves.
And what an honor. What a freaking honor to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You know, to hear someone's pain like that and to be welcomed into that. That is, one of the things that too that I recognize is I've been in recovery, alcoholic, and in recovery for a number of years. And it's not uncommon to see the transition in people, obviously, when their lives change, and in their faces. There was a gentleman at a meeting a couple of weeks ago that sat next to me when he first came in. I think it was just over a year ago, first came in, um, and he was unrecognizable to me. And listening to him speak, it was like my jaw just dropped open. And, so I see that. But in this particular environment, it is intensive work. I mean, it's for, you wanna get rid of those stories, those self-limiting beliefs. You wanna have the tools to be able to just blow that shit out of the water, in a short period of time. It is a quantum leap. And like I said, people coming in the doors one day and then just a matter of, weekends later, seeing a change in them. That's what just gives my heart freaking joy.
Well, and on that note, Rick, I just want to say that something I really appreciate about this program is that there is that like short, like compact, right? In like 7 days, 7 calendar days, 2 weekends, there is a unmistakable transformation.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to stop there, right? The like level 3, like 3 months of coaching continuation is about the integration. And so I really appreciate integration because, especially for people who have done a lot of work, integration, if you're not truly living it yet, there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
And so, because it's easy to have peak experiences and take an elevator up to a higher state of consciousness, right? You can do that through workshops, through psychedelics, through breath work, right? All kinds of ways for us to have elevator rides up to a higher floor. But what happens is that we then get in the elevator and come back down to wherever our center of gravity is. And so what I see level 3 about is, hey, let's actually do the work of we're gonna take the stairs and we're also going to move all the furniture up. We're gonna move all our belongings up to a higher floor. So instead of just living on the first floor and visiting the 10th, we can start to actually move our residence to the 3rd, 4th, 5th floor.
Yeah. Yep. I like that analogy.
One of the things that's been really powerful for me is seeing my friends and loved ones go through this program after me. And Shane hinted on this with his wife Alia. I had 2 people who are very, very close to me do the class immediately following ours. And it's really difficult when you're in it to actually take a step back and see the changes, the transformation that's occurring. It's a lot easier when you're an outside observer. And so with the 2 people that I cared about, who I was able to enroll in doing the class after us, being able to watch them transform and bust through these walls and barriers that they had has been a profoundly powerful experience.
Yeah.
And it was also a matter of trusting the process. At one point, one of these people was furious at me for sending her to this thing that was going to.
I was with you when you got that text.
Yeah, you were. And I was really rattled by it. I was like, and of course, it's by people pleasing and all of that coming out, which is why the integration that Shane touched on is so important. But it was really rattling for me to see this person who I care about, I mean, truly love deeply, be so upset because this process is busting her open and forcing her to look inside herself and figure out, how have I been in my own way? What is it that I'm doing that's holding me back? And it's tough. It's tough work. And she was kicking and screaming and hated it until she loved it. And that's hard to explain unless you're in it. And so on the other side of it, I mean, she came out just a radically transformed person, and we've had deep connecting conversations since then, and it's been a very, very powerful experience to see the change that occurs in somebody else, and it's easier to see that from the vantage point of an outsider. And I wanted to recognize and honor Shane for sharing his experience with his wife, because it really is powerful.
Yeah. And Glenn is going soon. Really looking forward to that. But what you said too, Mason, about her being angry, we all share an ego, right? And the ego is all about self-preservation, self-protection, batten down the hatches, don't let anybody in, save your space, this is it's all about that. So yeah, it's not going to want to have you look inside. My ego does not want me to be free from that shit. But my higher self, which we learn about, does. So there's always going to be this little battle going on. And as Shane mentioned, moving our furniture up, but we, the drift that we've talked about, too, when you come from that environment back in your day to day, it's very easy to get sucked back into the matrix, sucked back to life as we knew it, and the importance of staying connected. We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who are we spending our time with? And I plan on keeping these connections with these wonderful people that I have developed relationships with, and I'm sure you all do as well, or plan on doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I have a quote. I wanted to get your take on it. Unless Shane, did you have anything you wanted to interject there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a Stephen Covey quote. You've probably heard it, but it says, "We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it." Just like your thoughts and how that sits with you, or what that brings to mind for you. Whoever would like to go first. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a quote that's delving into the differences between victimhood and empowerment. I can see the world as a nasty, brutish place, and guess what? It will be that for me. I can also see the world as a beautiful, loving, connected, welcoming place, and guess what? It will be that for me. At the end of the day, our viewpoint, how we view the world around us, is a profoundly powerful tool we have for affecting change and affecting impact. And so, while he doesn't say that in that quote, to me, it's absolutely looking at the dichotomy between empowerment and victimhood.
I love that.
Yeah. And, like what I'll add to that is I don't think that empowerment is any better than victimhood, right? Like it's not like, oh, I'm empowered, so therefore I'm better than all those lame victims out there. Right? It's all doesn't like I'm a bit of a nihilist in the sense that I don't think there is any moral superiority. There's not like a better way to live. I think it really comes down to, are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying seeing the world as a unsafe, brutish place where everybody's out to get you and you aren't safe and there's no reason to be optimistic about the future? Is that working for you, right? Is that actually creating an experience of this one precious life that we have where you're able to bring your greatest gifts to the world and be of service and leave things better off than you found them? And if that isn't your experience, well, then try something else on, right? Try another lens. Try a deconditioning of whatever ways you've been taught to see the world and strip it away, clean the lens, and see if you like the view better. But I just want to make that point of, because I think that a lot of people that get into self-development, part of the journey is having moments of like evangelical righteousness of like, I'm better than everybody else because I'm doing this and now you need to do it. And it's like, I've been through enough evangelical phases to know that like there isn't one thing. There isn't just a single path. and everybody has their own path. And yeah, we get to enthusiastically share and bring other people along for the ride, but also a deep respect for the freedom of individuals to follow their own path. There's a Adyashanti quote that I really love that impacted me as a bit of a control freak that's always trying to get people to, do things my way. And he said that you will never be free until you give the world its freedom. And I love that one because it doesn't mean I can't influence the world, but it also means that I can let go of thinking that the world needs to be a certain way for me to be a certain way. Yeah. I can walk through the world with a soft, open heart, with freedom, with power, grounded, because I choose to, not because the world is saying, hey, now it's okay to be those things.
Yep. And the energy we send out and by way of freedom to the world does come back to us. And that's our birthright, right? Freedom, joy, happiness is our birthright. I love that you said, the whole evangelical thing. That was my experience as well. And all of those experiences have worked together to bring me to where I am today. And none of them was wasted. All about, you mentioned pendulum swinging very early on in our conversation. I think you were referring to your parents, but my pendulum swung many ways, back and forth to get to that place, and all those experiences working together to bring about a balance today, and grateful for that. So one other thing I wanted to share, and that is, there's another quote, and it's a Lao Tzu quote, and I've shared this the last 3 podcasts because I just love it, and it goes right along with where our journey. It's, if you want to awaken all of humanity, then awaken all of yourself. If you want to eliminate the suffering in the world, then eliminate all that is dark and negative in yourself. Truly, the greatest gift you have to give is that of your own self-transformation. Either of you have any thoughts on that one? Then we will wrap it up.
Okay. One of the things that struck me is I did the first 2 weekends of the workshop, and I had this profound transformative experience, and I came back into the world, my life and my job, and the way I was interacting with people was different, and all of a sudden the people around me were different. And it's like, wait, I'm the one who did the workshop, and now all these other people are different. Like, what's going on there? And the realization is that my ways of being have the ability to impact everybody around me by showing more gratitude, by showing more vulnerability, by showing authenticity. I stood up in the middle of a leadership meeting in my business and went around and shared the gifts that I saw in each of the managing partners of our restaurants, and I started crying, which the idea of crying in front of my team is something that was total anathema to me 3 months ago. But by stepping into my authentic self and sharing that emotion and showing what's coming from the heart, I was able to connect with them in a way that wouldn't have been possible otherwise, and then they responded in turn. And so, to me, we have the ability to make deep impact on others and shift others through our ways of being. Yes. And I've seen it happen over and over again.
Wow. Just wow. Y'all will never be the same again after that. That is amazing. Amazing. As we say in the very early on part of this podcast, the pre-recorded message, it's our thoughts that shape our reality. And that is a true statement. Do either of you have any contact information you want to give out for folks if they would like to reach you or hear more about your journey, your stories about emotional intelligence, maybe Ascension Leadership Academy, or get involved with you in some other endeavor you may have going on?
Sure. Best way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn. Is a pretty good platform for me. You can just look me up, Shane Metcalf, on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Shane. Mason?
I am easily reachable at mason.ayer, AYER, @gmail.com.
Thank you so much. And thank you to both of you for being here today. I really appreciate you. You are loved. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And as always, folks, you can reach out to me as well. My webpage is theawakenedcollective.org. It has links to all my social media, my email, along with coaching services, including a complimentary one-on-one call. There are books that I've written, books that I highly recommend that have been transformative along my journey. Thank you again to my friends Shane and Mason for being here this morning, and to Audio Alchemy Productions. Until next time, my friends, love and kindness always.